your financial statement audit. And what we're going to do today is kind of just go over the financial statements, the audit itself, at a pretty high level. But from us, I believe you have probably 4 documents, or 3, I think, documents that we'll go over. And we're going to go over it at a pretty high level, but we have a little bit of time to talk about it a little more in depth than we do usually in the public setting. But as I go through this, feel free to ask questions. I know we got some new council members. I know last year we had, I think, some new council members. We kind of went through some things that were, the things that are kind of important when it comes to looking at these documents. But feel free to ask questions today, tomorrow, whenever. We're always happy to talk about this. But I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Ann and her team for getting us here. For the next month, I'm going to be traveling all over Virginia doing these meetings, but you're the first locality. So that's pretty nice, and I think you're the only one that I'll get knocked out in November, actually. So commend your team for getting us there, because this is a really long process, hundreds and hundreds of hours of our time. I can't even imagine the amount of time for Ann and her team. So just real happy to get here. So what we're going to do is we're first going to start with the annual comprehensive financial report, most likely bound in plastic. Looks like has a nice pretty cover.
Oh, yes.
Okay. What we're going to do is walk through that. But just a little background on the audit. This really today is the culmination of pretty much 7 months of work. We start probably in April, reaching out to Ann, talking about the schedule of the audit process, giving her information we need, things we expect, talking about new standards. We have one new standard this year that I'll talk about briefly. Won't dive a ton into it, but just kind of explain to you what's going on there. But it really starts back then in April. We do some preliminary work in the late spring, early summer. We step back a little bit, give Ann and her team time to really pull things together, close the books, really balance everything, reconciling. We come back in the fall, spend a couple of weeks going through all of your information. Then we, with the team's assistance, we prepare these financials, goes through various drafts, questions back and forth, and then culminates with us issuing it. I think it went final the other day, and then we're here today to go over it. So it's a very long process. I mean, really, it's at least 7 months. We have some clients it's 18, 19 months, which makes it not fun. But what we're going to go through is we're going to go through this at a pretty high level. And what I'll do is walk you through, and I'm going to do my best to reference the page numbers that I'm going to be referencing. The first one's going to be page number 1, and what's unique about this is that page number 1 is probably about 15 pages in. So look for numerical page 1, and it's in the financial section, and you'll see a letter from Brown Edwards. And it's not imperative that you look at those as we walk through, but I'll just give you a minute or so to get to that. And it says Independent Auditors Report at the top. So the primary purpose that you engage us as auditors is to give you an opinion of your financial statements. And really what that means is we're an independent party, and we're looking at your financial statements, and that includes all the different funds, all the different activities of the town. We're looking at your balance sheets. We're looking at your income statements, your operating statements. And what we're doing is we're making sure that those financials are prepared in accordance with the accounting standards in the United States, to make sure that they're prepared correctly and you're following all the standards that you need to, but also we are verifying those numbers. So we're looking at your balance sheet, we're verifying cash accounts, we're confirming debt balances, we're looking at how you've accrued things that are due to vendors or due to employees. So we're going through all that, we're doing verification. So not only are we verifying that these are accurate numbers based on external source documents, but we're also making sure that as you bring all this together, it is prepared in accordance with the standards that we all have to follow. And if you look at the second paragraph of the very first page of that, you'll see it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. So if you had only given me 2 minutes to talk, that's what you want to hear. What that is that's what we call a clean or unmodified opinion, and that's the highest level of assurance that we can give to a set of audited financials. Just a little aside about that, we do enter every year with the expectation that we're going to get to a clean opinion at the town, but I don't take it for granted that we do get there, and I hope you don't as well, because it's getting harder and harder in local government world to find folks who know these standards to work in finance departments. We're seeing a lot of turnover at localities right around here. These are the 18-month audits, 20-month audits, 24-month audits, because it's hard to find folks that know this work. So you got a good team here that can get us that clean opinion, but just don't take that for granted. So while it's our expectation, that's our expectation. A lot of clients, and some clients, we can't even get to that clean opinion. So just really a good work by your team. So that's our opinion on the financials. What we're going to do now is we're going to navigate this document. It's 200 pages long. So we're not going to read this. We're not going to dive too much. Also because these are June 30 numbers and we're here in November. But we're going to navigate this document because a lot of folks in your position don't look at a lot of these many times throughout the year. You're not seeing 100 of them like I am. But it's good to kind of walk through and just really say, hey, that's what this part of this report is for. That's what this is. So if you flip to page 5A, it's right after our letter. So from 5A to 5J, this is the management's discussion and analysis. And what this is if you want a narrative discussion of these 200 pages of financial statements and notes, and you really just want a brief overview of the statements, of everything that's going to follow, and some current year and prior year changes, things that we think that a user or management thinks that a user would find important to understand what's been going on at the town this year compared to last year. What are some major financial initiatives? What are some budget things that a user should know? Or just what do we expect to see in the future? Some highlights, really. This 15-page document right here, this section, this management discussion analysis, is really more narrative. It's not going through a balance sheet or an income statement or all these really detailed footnotes. It just gives a high-level report of the finances of the town for the year. And it's really, in some cases, I reference folks to the audit opinion and this document, really, to really say, I really understand what's going on in my role as a council member. All right, if you turn to the next two pages, you'll see the statement of net position. What we've got here, the statement of net position, this is essentially the balance sheet for the town as a whole. When I say the town as a whole, it includes the general fund, your proprietary funds, which mean your business type activities. It also includes your component units, which is pretty much everything for the town. And when I say balance sheet, your statement of net position, it's everything that the town owns, whether it be cash, investments, amounts that are due to you from customers or citizens, and an offset by what you owe. Things like long-term debt, accounts payable to vendors, things due to citizens, to employees, payroll, things of that nature, and then big liabilities for your pension, and that pension benefit that is one of the reasons why folks used to come work at local governments, because that pension was a really, really nice benefit, but there's a big liability associated with that. And this is as of June 30. What I always mention is that on July 1st, it's be a totally different page. It could look completely different based on cash collections, based on activities of the town, but this is a snapshot right at your end of your year. And I'll just point out a few items that they always kind of jump out to me when I look at these, and as council members, they might say, oh, yeah, that's a really big number, what's going on there. If you look down about, 2/3 down the page, you'll see a line item that says net pension liability. And you'll see that for you, your net pension liability is about $7.4 million. That's not terribly large for a lot of localities. I have some where that's over $100 million. I've got some where that's actually an asset because it's been overpaid. But it did go up this year. It did go up because investments in the plan did not perform and keep up with the increase in the liability associated with benefits. Now, one of the questions that many members of councils and boards I work with say, well, what do we do about that liability? Why does it keep getting bigger? What does that mean to us? Really what it means to you is nothing. Really what it is just informational number more than anything, because the town itself, you're paying everything you need to pay. That's the Virginia retirement system gives you contribution requirements, you pay those. We actually test that to make sure you're paying what you're supposed to. Once you pay and you do your part, it just goes into a pool, an investment pool, and then your employees retire, they age, they pass away, they get paid these benefits, and your investment performance of that pool fluctuates with the market. So really it's a liability, it's an informational item for you, but for you to know from a cash standpoint, you're paying what you need to do for contribution purposes. Below that, you'll see about a $400,000 liability called net other post-employment benefits. Really, this is in association, in conjunction with participating in the state pension plan. There are other benefits, long-term benefits that your employees and your retirees get, and there's a liability associated with that as well. And it's about $400,000. You also have some local benefits that you give certain employees when they retire, and there's a long-term liability associated with that. For the same question, the same comment as the pension, you're paying every year from a cash basis what you're required to pay into that. What's out of your hands is census data, your employees, their age. What's outside of your hands as well is the investment performance of the state as they put that money that you contribute into that pool. So I always point those two liabilities out as something that it's just a big number and it jumps out.
Do we still have anybody getting local benefits?
We don't have any retirees on health insurance right now.
Yeah, I thought we rolled them all out, but it's.
And so that, I assume, will just keep going down
I would assume
over
so.
time.
Because if not, I was going to hopefully get on it too.
Well,
then if you can get
Yeah, then you can get it too.
retirees are eligible at the full premium price, and even though we don't subsidize it, we still have to record a liability because the thought is that they have the ability to participate and they're high claims normally when they're retired.
Yeah. And
So it drives the rates up.
It drives the rates up, exactly. They call it an implicit rate subsidy. It's not, it's another thing. It's a bookkeeping entry, but inherently it's driving your cost for your current employees up because you have retirees with higher benefits. And so there's an implicit long-term liability of the town. It's just a kind of a bookkeeping item, really. So, but it is something that our requirements have us put on there.
So how does the pension work for the retirees here? Do they get a monthly allotment? Is that how it works, or?
When they retire, they're paid, is it bi-monthly,
monthly.
once a month, something like that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First day or the last day of the month.
That's it.
So I guess what I'm getting at, some companies, you can get a lump sum, but here it's just a monthly
The Virginia,
benefit.
the Virginia retirement plan is paid out.
Okay, on a monthly basis.
Yes, on a
I
monthly
got you.
basis. Yep.
Well, for his question, does that include the newer plans or that way also?
Well, and this is a lump figure, the whole
Okay.
thing, but there is an option for a lump sum if they call it plopping, is their terminology, and you have to work over 1 to 3 years to be eligible for a certain amount of plop. as they
Yeah.
call it.
You can't plop your whole 30 years or whatever it is.
Right.
You can plop 1 to 3 years, is my
Yes.
understanding.
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
But not all at once.
okay. Thanks.
Another item I'll point out, you'll see a line item under liabilities called unearned revenue. It's about $150,000. That was $3.2 million last year. And what that is 2021, 2022, you received significant funding under the American Rescue Plan, and that just hit your bank account. And when that hit your bank account, we parked it right there in unearned revenue because you couldn't earn it until you used it. And then a majority of yours is just going to Bedford Water anyways. And so from our standpoint, we actually audit that. We audit how you are giving that money to Bedford Water and then how you are monitoring to make sure that they're spending it correctly. On the flip side, we also audit Bedford Regional Water Authority, and so we actually audit as well how they're spending it. So you kind of get a double whammy there from assurance. But we're starting to see those go down. Localities had millions and millions of dollars of this money just sitting there, and we're finally starting to see it go away because we're coming up on the timeline where that had to be committed and then spent. So, so my assumption is that'll be zero here in the next year. Another thing I'd like to point out too is if you look down at the bottom, you'll see a positive number for unrestricted net position. It's about $7.2 million on your business type activities column. And really when it comes to that, that's really your net positive operating equity, really. It means that your assets that you have to operate outweigh your liabilities. And what's nice about that number is that we have already carved out things, long-term assets, like your infrastructure or vehicles or buildings or things like that. That's been carved out, and that's truly positive equity when you compare cash to your accounts payable and all your liabilities. But like I said, July 1st it can be completely different based on paying things off. Another thing too, I like to remind everyone is that in the column here, you'll see component units. You do have two component units. One is a housing authority and one is your economic development authority. They don't have a lot of activity, although they did have a little bit more than usual. I think they bought land, is that right? They bought land this year, property this year, which we hadn't seen that level of activity since they were created. But they, at some localities, you can see those component units have a lot more activity, but I do remind you that they are there, they're part of the whole town as a whole. Then the next page is your statement of activities. So what we'll do is turn this page on its side, and I'll walk you through what this is. This is your income statement for the town as a whole. When you think about most income statements at businesses, you start with revenue, because that's why a business exists, and then you offset that with expenses. And when you look at this statement, in a government, you're not here to generate revenue, you're here because you provide services, and services have a cost. So for when you look at this income statement, it's different than most income statements where you read from the top to the bottom. What we're gonna do instead is start on the left side with the number one question when it comes to running a locality. How much does it cost to provide services to our citizens? And so you'll see on the left side, it's a column that says expenses, and you'll see for the entire government to operate, it was about $40.3 million to operate. And that's your entire government, all the services you provide. So then the next question, when you identify and your starting point is expenses, is how do we pay for that? And so when you look at this statement, you start with expenses and you work your way to the right. You first have charges for services, that's user fees, it's solid waste fees, it's electric service revenue. Then you have operating grants. Those are grants from federal or state agencies that are used for just general operations. In some cases, you could have capital grants, which are used specifically for capital purposes. And then you come up, because you're government, grants, charges for services, and contributions, they never cover expenses. They're not, your business model is not designed that way. So you had to come up with a negative kind of net operating cost. The next question is how do you pay for that? Work your way down the column, and you'll see the answer is taxes. Taxes are charged generally based on property values or other things or sales figures, and that's what you use to cover that deficit from general operating expenses. And so when you come to the bottom of government activities, you'll see that the town's general activities, and general activities include public safety, public works, you'll see that there was an $11.6 million like net income for government activities. And that might seem high to you. And the reason for that is right above. You'll see this year, the town actually annexed about $11.2 million of state roads. And when you annex those, they come in at a value, and that's revenue for you. So while it looks like you made $11.6 million, really you immediately back off that 11.2 for those roads that came on, because they come on your balance sheet as an asset, but there's no cash associated with that. So you back that out, it comes to about a $200,000 or $300,000 positive income for the government activities. You'll see over business side activities, they did have a negative overall of $650,000, but I'll point to one item. It's a transfer from the electric fund over to the general fund, about over $700,000. That's what drives that into a negative. You back that out, and your business type activities operated with a positive income, which is what you want to see from your business activities like solid waste and electric combined. Any questions so far? Those are some of the bigger number items. Now we're going to kind of just take a walk through these financials, and I'll point out some other items. Exhibits 3, 4, 5, and 6. When you think these statements I just spoke about, they are for the town as a whole. It's everything combined into single-page statements, everything going on with the town. But they also, those are statements that include long-term items. Fixed assets, roads, buildings, cars, long-term payables, that pension, these long-term items that have to be accounted for, but they're not front and center when you're focusing on budgeting. Your budgeting is more focused on the short term. So exhibits 3 through 6, these are specific statements, a balance sheet, an income statement just for your general fund. And it's a lot, and it's been whittled down from all those big long-term items like the pension, the fixed assets to truly what you use in the short term to really look and make near-term decisions and budgeting decisions. Exhibit 7, this is a budget to actual schedule for the general fund. That is a legally adopted budget, so therefore we do some audit procedures on that, and then we analyze it as a whole. And you'll see that in the far right column, the number one question I have usually when I'm on boards or talking to boards is, did we overspend or underspend our budget for expenditures? And your final budget included $27 million of expenditures. Your total general fund expenditures were $14.5 million. So you were well under that adopted budget. So there was no budget non-compliance there for the fund as a whole. There are a few line items that had some differences, but as a whole, you underspent for the year. Exhibit 8, 9, and 10. These are financial statements for your business type activities. On the earlier pages, we presented those combined. Here we're breaking it down by solid waste and electric so you can really see how those funds performed. Exhibit 9 is one I like to focus on, which is the income statement for these activities. When you have business type activities, you want to be charging enough user fees, revenues, to your customers to cover the expenses. And I think last year, for the first time ever, we had solid waste made just a little bit. I think it was like $9 or something like that. But it broke even. This year, it did show a loss of $126,000. However, you do have a little under $200,000 in non-cash depreciation that is driving that your operations into a negative there. And so if you back out that non-cash bookkeeping item, really, where we're recognizing the value of your assets over their lives, you back that out, and then the solid waste did operate positively. Electric, as we usually see, did operate it pretty much broke even from operations. It did have some significant interest, offset by some interest expense, but it did have a pretty large transfer out to the general fund that drove its final income to a negative. But you back out that transfer, and that has a positive operations. What I just spoke about, that's the accounting basis for your proprietary funds, your business type activities. From a cash standpoint, if you want to see the actual cash flows, you flip to Exhibit 10, and you can see one of the things that if I'm operating a business type activity, I want to see positive operating cash flows. If you look at the top of Exhibit 10, you'll see across the board positive numbers for operating cash flows. That means charging your customers, paying your expenses, because you need to generate positive cash flows from operations to pay for things like debt, to pay for new fixed assets, things like that. So, or to fund some transfers to other funds. But happy to report positive operating cash flows for both of those activities.
I did have a question about the depreciating assets with the landfill, with our solid waste. What parts of the assets are really depreciating that much?
So one is closed, right? Or one is closed.
Yeah, okay, so it's the landfills are causing the depreciation.
So, are there buildings over there? I can't remember what exactly
Yeah,
is
it's a
there.
long list. It's over 100 assets in that fund.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was the trucks were getting that old and that bad, or if it was the,
I don't know if depreciation materially changed year to year.
okay. No, just curiosity, sorry.
I'll pull up Exhibit 9 last year.
It's funny because the actual development costs, like the cost that you had to build that landfill, is pretty much fully depreciated because it's closed. I think it's maybe just has a little bit maybe left in its life, but
Yeah, it only went up like $12,000 year over year.
yeah. So other things that you have out there would be other operating assets that you have to manage that asset, that infrastructure. So
Okay, yeah, like the transfer
Transfer
station, the
station,
vehicles, yeah, okay. That's what I was just wondering about, because there's some other parts of it, like the vehicles that are a big concern for me.
No, and part of it on why it changed on Exhibit 1 and 2 be because of the GASB 101 implementation. And we would have that cost we had to record for the sick leave and the FMLA leave.
yes, and I will talk about that in Well, actually, I can talk about that right now. One of the things, talking about liabilities, what Ann's referring to, every year we have new accounting standards, and because the folks who oversee governmental accounting, their number one goal is to identify everything that possibly could be a liability for governments. And they are scouring these financials, they are looking for anything and everything that could be a liability, because they want citizens and users to be able to say, what's the town owe? And one of the things they revisited was how we account for accrued vacation, and now FMLA, sick leave, things like that. Before, I think we really mostly just recorded vacation, but what the standards required now is to revisit that and say, when I work for the town, that's a transaction. I'm doing something for the town and you're paying me salary. Well, there's other things that you pay me when I'm not doing anything. And historically, we just accounted for vacation because that's the easiest, most obvious one is that I'm taking time off, but you're still paying me. We're gonna put that in your balance sheet. Other things we had to revisit this year in this new standard were FMLA, other benefits like that, and sick leave. And saying, hey, how much sick leave am I actually gonna use? Because guess what? That's also something that you're gonna pay me and I'm not gonna do anything for you. And so that's another liability that we had to put on our books that did increase your liabilities, has additional expense that impacted these financials this year. Likewise, from a cash standpoint or decision-making standpoint, it's just another one of those bookkeeping entries where you're doing the same thing from a budget standpoint, you're budgeting salaries the way you should. If I worked here, my salary is a flat salary. You're gonna pay me what you pay me. It's just, there's a liability associated with taking time off and not doing anything for the town to get that money, so.
Do you average that, I'm just curious, do you average that out for employees, or how do you?
So what we did, I think, here is we take, for vacation's pretty easy, because it's a number, and then we apply their hourly rate.
100%.
Yeah, 100% of their hourly rate. But for sick leave, what we do, we say, well, we've got this folks who have accumulated sick leave, and then we say, let's step back and just make an estimate of how much do folks usually use? And that makes it a really high-level estimate to say, okay, of that, they'll probably use 40%, 20%, 30%, because you have people who use all of it, people who never use any of it. And so you have people in management with big numbers and people who are new with little numbers. And then we do like a blended average for that. So it's really a high level.
That's what I did. I took a 5-year average with each employee, inactive and active, and I calculated how much the town gave all those employees and then how much they actually used, and then we did a blended average on it. It was around 56% of sick leave. That was a big number.
And there was that standard required us to implement that this year, but we actually, do we restate? We restated,
Yes.
yeah. So we figured out what last year's was too, because if we ran all of that through the current year, those funds would have a lot more expense. Right now they have more expense as it is, but if we ran all of that change through the current year, it wouldn't be fair to the statements, the financials, to show a huge expense for that. So we actually figured out what last year's was so that we can kind of blend and equalize the impact of that.
Is that a high number? I mean,
I don't know if do we separately state it in the note?
Yes, so for the governmental activities, it was about a little under $400,000 of additional liability. So that's your general fund activities. And then for your business type activities, it was a little under $250,000 of additional liability. But as a whole, I can tell you right now, in your general fund as a whole, you have about 723,000 of those absences that are accrued, and for business type activities, it's a little under 500,000.
It's a big number.
So 56, is that, we're saying that people would use 50%, 56% of their sick leave on average within what they're given each year?
Because we have some people who use all of it,
Yeah,
and some people
some
who use
people-
none
yeah.
of it, and
Yeah.
it just kind of, that's where.
And that's where the average is, okay.
And your sick leave has no extra payout at the end either, right? Yeah,
Right,
so
that's why we never actually
Yeah.
calculated it before. They don't
Yeah.
get any cash
There's no
out of
cash
it.
exchanging at the
Yeah.
end of retirement, but
Yeah,
there's an inherent, just like a liability associated with your post-retirement healthcare benefits where you've got older folks on there and it's causing a liability for your current folks. Same thing, that sick leave, it's a liability. It's something they're gonna use and you're not gonna get any benefit on those days when they're sick.
or it
But,
could
yeah.
cost you by having to bring extra people in to cover for they're doing.
There's all sorts of different, like, inherent liabilities there, so.
I mean, I don't want to get hung up on this, but
Oh, yeah.
that is, how much do they get per year?
They
Yeah,
get
8 hours per month.
8 hours per month.
And the maximum is 960 hours that they can carry over.
Now, when they retire, can they sell that back, or do they have to use it?
No, you don't get any of that.
Use it or lose it? Okay.
And that's pretty common. Most localities don't pay out sick at the end, but you do usually get paid out, accrued vacation.
Okay.
Use PTO or whatever. So,
Okay, well, that's interesting.
yeah, I think,
Might have to talk about that more.
yeah, it's a benefit, and there's some cost associated with giving that benefit.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So, starting on page 17 and going for, I don't know, about 40 pages are the footnotes to the financial statements. Not going to spend a lot of time in there, but what you have here are just more narrative discussion of things such as your fixed asset activity, your debt activity. If you really want to dig in and understand your pension liability, there's all sorts of actuarial calculations in there. Can be pretty overwhelming, but there's a lot of good information there that just supplements the numbers we already spoke about. After the footnotes, that would probably be around page 50, numerical page 50, you'll see a section called Required Supplementary Information. And what you have here for about 10 pages or so is information that is required for us to include in here. But it's really just trend information for your pension liabilities and those post-retirement benefit liabilities. It's just really showing how does this fluctuate over the last 10 years. 10 years ago, your pension liability was $6 million, and today it's 7.4. And this answers the question, what's happened in the last decade with our pension plan? And so just additional information to support what's happened in your pension liabilities and other benefits over the last 10 years. After that, you'll see probably around page 56-ish, you'll see a section called Other Supplementary Information. These are just separate financial statements provided for the Housing Authority and the Economic Development Authority. Remember on that first page, they're aggregated, it's a combined statement. This just breaks it down further for you to see just what was the activity this year for those schedules, for those funds, for those entities. Starting around page 60, going for another probably 20-ish pages, is what we call the statistical section. Maybe it's about 17, 18 pages. The statistical section, likewise, it's not really part of your basic financial statement, so we actually aren't even giving you an opinion on this. We do tie the numbers around to make sure they make sense compared to your financial statements, but these are 10-year trend information, whether it be your levels of fund balance over the last decade. There's even non-financial numbers in here, like operating indicators, pieces of equipment maintained for every year for the last 10 years. There's just lots of really good information that it tells a story. You might look at your income statement, your balance sheet, your fixed assets, and you say, well, oh man, fleet, vehicle line item, it's pretty high. What's the activity been like in there for the last 10 years? Just lots of really good information that just further supplements and just tells the financial story of the town for the year, in this case, for the last 10 years. After that, you'll see a section called Compliance section. The first phase of our audit is what I just went over, which is our opinion and our review of your financial statements as a whole. In addition to that, because you're a local government in Virginia, we have to perform procedures on your policies and your procedures. And what we do is we make sure that we understand what the town has from a policy standpoint, because your policy should be designed to prevent fraud, to detect fraud, and to prevent errors in your financial statements. And what we do is we gain an understanding to make sure they're designed properly. But then also, while we're performing your audit, we also do some verification, and we just perform your audit as well to make sure that while you've designed your policies, are you following them? Are you following them, or did errors come through? Did we detect fraud? Things of that nature. If we have issues with either the design or the execution of your policies, we have to report them in the first page of this first letter as what we call material weakness or significant deficiency, which just means, hey, there's a risk here that there could be errors or fraud. Happy to report, we did not have any such weaknesses to report, which is not super common at local governments. There's always something that kind of falls through the cracks, but happy to report, nothing here. Second page of that report is more focused on compliance because you are a locality in Virginia. The state auditors in Virginia give us a compliance supplement. It's like 60, 70 pages of tests that we perform. If you issue new debt, we have to make sure that it followed the legal rules to issue debt. We have to make sure that your cash accounts are marked as public so that you're securing them. We look at conflict of interest statements filed by counsel. We just go through a lot of compliance items. If we have any issues, we do report those as findings. We did have one finding this year because, as I mentioned, your general fund budget as a whole, you way underspent it. But there were certain line items that had some fluctuations from budget to actual. But as a whole, it was not a finding, but these different line items had a couple little items that had some fluctuations, I think probably due to lease accounting, is that what it was?
That was one of it, yes. We budgeted for it in the police department, and they spent it there, and it had to be reclassed after the end of the year.
Yeah. So it's a reclass because, like I said, in total there was no overspending. We do report that there, but it does not impact our financial opinion.
Parks and Rec one was kind of on us because we had that rate increase in June, and it was the electric account that caused it to go over, so.
So there's one section of this audit that we would usually go over, we've gone over since you received all that ARPA money, and that's because you received the federal money. I mentioned that we audit that. We audit how you spend it or how you oversee how Bedford Water uses that. We have to follow a compliance supplement, some guidance from the federal government that tells us exactly what to look at. For 2025, that has not been issued yet. And, it usually comes out in April or May or June. They've got OMB, which is at the federal level, they've got some other things on their plate, so they've not gotten to issuing that. We've done some testing and we had no preliminary findings. We can't issue that until they issue the approval. The government shutdown didn't help with that because that wasn't a priority during that as well, but hopefully they're back on track and we'll issue that soon. When they do, we'll button up our testing and then kind of, I guess, reissue a version of this with that additional reporting in there, which will include a list of all your federal expenditures. But just want to point that out because that's usually something we've gone over since 2020 when we received that money. So next thing we'll move to is a document on Brown Edwards letter that says accounting and other matters and required communication. Probably also bound. And I'll walk through this a little bit just so you can, when you pick it up later on, you can digest it a little more. In this document, the first part is an internal control letter. If we had significant findings in your policies and procedures, they would have been in the report I just spoke about. But also, as we're performing an audit, we might have some other suggestions that come out. We do have suggestions all the time where it's just like a verbal suggestion, like, hey, you might want to consider doing this, doing that. But if we think it rises to the level that we want to put it in written form for you, just to be aware of, we would put it in there. We did not have any new comments this year. What is included in there is about 6 or 7 pages of just information of upcoming accounting standards. If you want to dig into that and just get ahead of the game and know what changes you'll see in this report, in these reports in the next couple of years, it's provided for you to digest in your free time. If you move about 8 pages into that document, you'll see another letter on Brown Edwards letterhead that says required communication with those charged with governance. So what we did is we just spoke about audit results, clean opinion, no significant findings. A lot of our localities, a lot of our audits, we can get to a clean opinion. I'd say about 95% of our clients, we can get to a clean opinion. Sometimes the story that we have to tell, or the journey, I would say, over those 7 months to get from beginning of the audit to the clean opinion can vary widely. Things that could come up are significant adjustments. Maybe we get financial statements that are just wrong. They don't reconcile, they're just a mess, and we have to post a bunch of entries that we determine, not management. There could be disagreements between our client and us. There could be special consultation circumstances, just things that come up that we overcome to get to that clean opinion. If those things happen, we have to report those to you in this letter. And have your report a very, very clean letter. There's no disagreements, no difficulties. no consultations. We did have a few minor items that we passed on, and I wouldn't say they're necessarily errors, but what they are, there's some accounting rules when it comes to accounting for leases that I'm not a super fan of, but they can get to be big, but here they're pretty small. And we said, we're not even gonna bother cluttering up the balance sheet for these because they're very small items. But even small items, we kind of park to the side and we just provide some information so you know, hey, there's X amount of lease liabilities we didn't put on there that are offset by an asset. But from a cash basis, expense standpoint, it's all accounted for properly. But we report those to you for your information. And then the last, 8 pages or so, you'll see actually a letter on Town of Bedford letterhead. This is the management representation letter when we are completely done our audit. So at the end of that 7-month period, we've gotten to the end and we've worked with management, and everyone agrees that the financials look clean. We all agree on how they're presented. At that day, we say, we're officially done the audit. We talk to attorneys. We say, we're done. And what we do is we give this letter to management and we date it and we say, hey, I need you to sign one last set of inquiries. Did you tell the truth to us? Are you aware of X, Y, or Z? Are you aware of fraud, litigation, problems, subsequent events, contingencies, just anything? And it's a long letter of questions. And we're like, hey, here are things that if you answer yes to these, we might have to crack these financials back open and consider, do we have a liability? Do we have a disclosure? So we're having these conversations about these things throughout the entire process. So when we do issue this letter, it's not like, oh, well, yeah, I'm actually aware of these 45 things, and let's redo all these numbers. So, but we do get a kind of catch-all letter at the end, and once we get that, then we're completely done the audit. And we give it to councils and boards to see so that you can see what management is representing basically on behalf of governance. All right, and one last document, and then I'll open it up for any further questions. There should be another document called the financial analysis. What we have here, this financial analysis, this is something that we do for some of our clients who like it, and really it takes these financials and just provides some graphical presentation of some key ratios, things like that. It's not a scientific study of the life of your assets or anything like that, but it does provide some kind of trend analysis in a pictorial view. And I'll point out a few that I think are important that I always like to look at. On page 2, you'll see it says level of unrestricted net position. What we have here, unrestricted net position is really the net equity of the town as a whole for your governmental activities, your general fund. And you'll see it's negative, but that's not something that surprises us because of the size of the pension liability, that long-term liability, your post-retirement benefits liability. Those liabilities are so big that it does drive your equity negative. But you'll see that as your assets have grown and your liabilities have been maintained and those pension liabilities in some cases have gone down, you'll see that it's almost break even really. It's negative 1.1% as a percent of your revenues. One thing I always like to point out is that while you did have negative net deficit, negative equity for government activities, if you do back out those pension liabilities and things like that, it does flip to a positive. So, and that's really from a decision-making standpoint. And honestly, I think any user who's going to look at the financial strength of any government in the United States probably immediately backs that out and says, okay, what's our real equity? But they are things we account for. Next page, page 3. Also an interesting calculation here is months in general fund balance, meaning our spendable fund balance at June 30th for the general fund. If we take that and we divide it by our monthly expenses, how many months, if we didn't collect a single penny from here forward, how many months of expenses do we have sitting in fund balance? And you'll see that yours is about 3.3 months. It's down a little bit from the last couple of years, but not significantly. But one thing I like to point out, another question that comes up is how do we compare to other towns? We run through some other towns like town of Blacksburg, town of Herndon, town of Culpeper, town of Appomattox, just places like that. Yes, those are all drastically different towns, but there are other towns in Virginia, no town's the same, but all of them, a lot of them range from 2 to 4 months of fund balance. I have some that are drastically more for various reasons. I have some that are barely one, or half a month. So, and usually that's coming from some of the smaller towns and not a strong tax base, so. Flip to page 5 and 6. Page 5 and 6 are what we call a current ratio. This is really just telling you of all of our liabilities, or of all of our assets, how much of that is covered by liabilities, meaning, we have in your case, you have 3.5 times more assets than your current liabilities, meaning just current liabilities. We've carved out all the long-term items. We've looked at things that are due in the short term and what do you have to pay for them in the short term. You always want to see at least a ratio of 1. Because a ratio of 1 means you got enough cash, accounts receivable to pay your employees and your vendors. In your case, it's 3.5, so it means you have 3 times the amount of assets at June 30th to cover those liabilities, and that's for your business type activities. And then on page 6, we provide it for the funds broken down, electric and solid waste by themselves. And as you would expect, solid waste, the numbers are a lot smaller. And then the last item we'll talk about is page 10. Another item that always comes up, and I mentioned this already when I was going through the statements, are when you have a business activity, in your case electric and solid waste, you want to be charging enough user rates to your customers to cover the expenses. And so we call that business type activity, we call it self-sufficiency. And in a perfect world, you want to see at least 100%, meaning your revenues covered your expenses. As I mentioned before, electric was almost pretty much break even this year from an operating standpoint, and that's why you'll see it's 100%. Electric always kind of hovers at or a little bit above 100%. That's what we've always seen over the, going back probably a decade or more. Solid waste, as I mentioned, last year was the first year we got just an inch over, just a hair over 100%. This year it dropped back down a little bit, but it's still operating better than it has probably historically before any year other than last year. So you'll see that's a little under 90% there. And this does include non-cash depreciation. So these ratios will change. Both of them will be well over 100% if we backed out that non-cash depreciation expense. Well, that's all I have. Any questions?
Well, we'll probably have some at some point, but after we digest it, but.
Yeah, feel free to always reach out. I like to hear from my council when they're asking about this. Sometimes when I hear from them in the middle of the year, it's not good things. So, but yeah, always feel free to reach out. You got a strong team here too that can answer questions. Just happy to get through yet another audit for the town.
When do you start the next one?
Probably April.
April, okay.
Yeah, we'll give team a little.
I didn't know
time.
how much of a break, that's what I was trying to
It
figure out how much of a
basically,
break.
from my side goes budget, audit, and we just alternate. you know.
Yeah. And we used
One
to
after another.
Yeah, it really is. You probably don't get any break really. But we used to get all of our audits done by November 30th, and then the state during COVID extended them to December 15th, the due date. So we're about a month ahead, which is great. But I think I hinted at this. We're seeing lots of local governments with turnover, and we just do government audits year round now.
Wow.
So we have some significant governments out there that are just they're having a tough time getting people in the position Ann's in. So you guys you've got it good right now. So yeah, I'm retired.
That's what we've been saying.
Yeah, I did a meeting yesterday, and the first thing they asked their finance director was like, when are you retiring? Because we've lost track on a lot of these local governments where things have gotten off track. It's unfortunate. It's good for us because we like doing government work. So, but it's tough for some of our clients.
Well, Chris, we appreciate it.
Yeah, my
Thank
pleasure.
you. If we have any questions, we'll let you know.
All right.
Yep, John, have any? Thank you.
Very good.
All right, then I guess this meeting is closed. And we got 10 minutes if y'all need a break or. the Pledge of Allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see everybody here. And we will get this agenda going and have a few things to go over tonight. First thing, approval of the minutes. Everybody's had a chance to read those. Any corrections?
Yeah, we need to make one.
All right.
Under council comments, it says that I mentioned Ms. Eubank turning 100 years old. That was actually Councilman Evans here that did that.
Do we have that? Yeah, you got the wrong credit for that.
Yes.
The cake was good.
Good. Good deal. All right, then they stand approved as changed. Report of town manager.
Thank you, Mayor Stanley, members of council. I've got a lot of things just to kind of pass along. There's a lot going on in the community coming up. Starting with the first thing I'll report on this Saturday, there will be a ceremony associated with the dedication of the Vietnam War Veterans Memorial in front of the courthouse. That will begin at 11 o'clock a.m. Also, I just wanted to note that between now and the next meeting of council, town offices will be closed in recognition of the Commonwealth of Virginia's holiday schedule. We will be closed for the Thanksgiving holiday beginning at noon on Wednesday, November 26th, and throughout the remainder of the week. Coming up in the first weekend in December, there are several events taking place on Saturday, December 6th. And this probably is not an exhaustive list, but it's everything I think I know about. Beginning with 8:30 a.m., the Bedford YMCA Peaks of Water Christmas Classic 5K race, beginning and ending at Bedford Baptist Church. The Bedford Christmas Parade will begin officially at 11 a.m., although staging will occur well before that. And streets will be closed downtown until the tree lighting event at 6 o'clock p.m., for the festival being put together by the Central Virginia Business Coalition and John Hayden. Also, the Bedford Community Orchestra will be performing a concert at 7:30 in the auditorium at Susie Gibson Science and Technology Center. Admission's free, although they do suggest a donation to help offset their costs. Also, the Festival of Trees at Bedford Welcome Center actually begins the week before, but on Saturday, December 6th, they will have extended hours, so people can go take part in that and vote for their favorite trees. And the National D-Day Memorial will have their Flames of Memory Luminaria event also that weekend beginning Saturday night. Also want people to know there is an agenda item tonight involving a $2,500 contribution from the town for Christmas decorations in conjunction with the December 6th tree lighting event. However, I wanted to let people know that the event organizer, Jonathan Hayden, also welcomes any other donations from the community, and I got his permission before I'm doing this. He can be reached by email at reservedjshowtime@gmail.com, or you can call him at 540-425-4675 to offer to give him money to offset the costs. Finally, we got another presentation coming up momentarily in your comments, but I want to recognize a few of my colleagues for their contributions. In particular, in the electric department, Ted Arrington recently completed the third level of 4 within our lineman apprentice program. And I also want to recognize Finance Director Ann Cantrell and our Information Technology Director Daryl Fouts for recently securing a grant from Versa to defer costs related to computer purchases. That's something that they went out of their way to do. Also, I'll note that all of the staff are out seeking funding opportunities like that. John actually submitted a couple of grant applications to the Tobacco Commission, so that's above and beyond effort that the community needs to be aware of and that I certainly appreciate. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. All help is appreciated. All right, no appearances before council that I'm aware of. Council comments. Let me start with Vice Mayor Upton.
Right. Got a couple of things here. Just recently attended a veterans breakfast that was sponsored by the Bedford County Parks and Rec and was hosted by the local Moose. They did an excellent job. I wasn't able to attend, but some of those that had attended the breakfast attended the dinner the previous night hosted by the Elks, and they were very appreciative and complimentary of the events that they had at the Elks Lodge. I'd also like to go ahead and congratulate Mr. Epperly for his recognition and for that the Rising Star Award. Saturday, I was at Liberty Middle School attending the craft fair that was hosted by the Bedford Women's Club, and just want to congratulate them on a job that successful event that they had. While I was there, I was sort of cornered by some folks that are part of the Bedford County Fair Committee, and I don't know that they could stop making favorable comments about Liberty Lake Park hosting this past fair, and that they appreciated the grounds and thought everything was went well. They did have some suggestions and comments, and I referred them to the town manager and the mayor to discuss those, how they could enhance the fairgoers' experience moving forward. Other than that, I think that's it. Thanks everyone for attending. Appreciate you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody here, and congratulations, Ann. You do a fabulous job. You keep everything straight for us. I also want to welcome people that's watching by YouTube. I get a lot of comments. People say, that they really can't make it here, but again, that they watch us on YouTube. So, thank everybody.
I'll come back to Stacy. Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah, all right.
I want to thank everyone for being here. I wanted to again congratulate Ann for a great audit, with especially comments with there are no weaknesses in it. So I want to appreciate the staff that's here today. And then I want to mention that Andy Crawford, who's the Director of Social Services, received a Outstanding Leadership Award from the Virginia Department of Social Services this week. So I want to mention him in that.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I also want to thank Lowe's and Councilman Haley for the work they did up at Liberty Lake Park on working on the bath and concession stand. And I'm to wish all y'all happy Thanksgiving.
I got a couple of things, and I got a presentation to one of the police officers. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Thank Ann for a great audit. Thank all the veterans that came down to the Elks Lodge and had that dinner with us that night. I hope they all enjoyed that. Also, I want to thank Councilman Councilman J.O. here. I can't say his last name. On providing food to the Lowe's employees and us at there when we was at there trying to update the Liberty Lake Park bathrooms at there. So we're pretty much done, maybe a little bit more coat, but he did provide the Lowe's employees lunch twice, so I want to thank him for that. And I do have a presentation for Officer Justin Gravy, excuse me, I'm sorry. On behalf of the Elks Lodge, I am the Sultan Rule, specifically with this award for service for all the great work you do for our community right there. And this was, we had this for you when we had our first responder event dinner, so sorry you couldn't make it that day. We want to thank you.
Good deal. All right.
They are.
Stacy, anything else?
That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for letting me do that. Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. Okay, I don't have too much. Ann, again, great audit, as usual. That's what we expect, and you come through every year for us. Thank you. Last Tuesday, on the 11th, I attended the D-Day ceremony honoring the veterans. And I was impressed, they recognized 3 World War II veterans that were 100 years plus. And I thought, that is quite an achievement to, number one, to live to be 100 years old, but to have survived World War II. But I got to thinking a little more deeper, and is there really something to be said about that military food? We'll never know.
There's a lot that's considered.
I know, yes. But anyway, that's all I have. No report of council committees, no revisions to the agenda.
The only thing I'll mention is that items 7, 8, and 9 of new business can be addressed with one motion,
Okay.
if you choose to do so.
Can we just take a voice? Are y'all
Unless
okay
anybody's
with that?
opposed to it.
Combining 7, 8, 9?
Yes.
Yes, let's do it. I didn't think we'd hear a no. All right, no public hearings, no consent agenda, no old business, new business. Presentation audit report, fiscal year ended June 30th, 2025. Chris, we just heard the detailed part.
That's right, we'll do it again here. Thank you for having me. As Mayor just mentioned, I'm Chris Banta with Brown Edwards. I'm the audit partner with oversight of the entire audit process. And what we do in the previous meeting, which was a work session with council, we spent about almost an hour probably going through all the different documents, just walking through the financial report, talking about our opinions. Now that we're in a public setting, I'm required to just give an update of just the results of the audit. Just want to thank Ann and her team for getting us to this process and to the end of this big journey once again. But I'll talk about the 3 phases of our audit, and then I will also speak about just a few big picture, high level other communications. Our primary goal as auditors is to give you an opinion on your financial statements. That's verifying the numbers, making sure they are presented in accordance with accounting and audit standards. And I'm happy to report, as I did in the previous meeting, that you did receive a clean, unmodified opinion. That's the highest level of assurance that we as auditors can give to a set of audited financials. As part of the audit, we're also required to look at your policies and procedures. We're supposed to look at what we call internal controls to make sure that you have properly designed procedures and they're properly in effect. They're probably being processed accordingly with your internal policies to make sure that you have them performing properly to prevent and detect fraud, to prevent and detect errors in your financial statements. Happy to report no significant findings to report there as well. Also, no findings related to our Auditor of Public Accounts of the state of Virginia compliance testing. So that's also a very clean report there, no material findings there. In addition, as part of the process, we had no significant audit adjustments, no disagreements or consultations or other difficulties with management. So very clean audit once again. And as I mentioned, we did go over it pretty in depth the last meeting, but always happy to answer any questions you may have now or later as well.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, presentation town website update.
Yeah, and I guess I'll call Woody Watts out from his
Woody.
lair where he was handling the broadcast
All
to
right.
share this information.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Get you on the video.
Pretty brief, I don't usually have a slide for me. So over the last few months, we have been updating the town website. And I am very excited. It's taken a few months. I don't want to mislead you and think that there were massive changes on the back end. There were not. This is basically a new paint job, bringing it up to standards, making it catchier, brighter, all the good stuff. So as a refresher, here is the old site, which I hope everyone is accustomed to. But you'll notice, let me just show you real quick. This is the old site. Right, everybody knows that. So this is, what I'm about to show you is a preview link for the new site. The newly designed site will not go live until December the 4th. So this is just a preview. Here is the new site. I'm going to give you a quick scroll and briefly go through each section. If you have any questions, stop me and let me know. As you can tell, we played off of the current branding guidelines of the logo. So the Town of Bedford logo that was redone years ago, we stayed in that same color palette. We just kind of intensified on the homepage, right? And we segued from the video banner that you currently see here to an image-based banner that rotates every time someone comes to the site. It's a new image, and we can schedule those. It really helps with, one, loading times of the website, makes it quicker. Two, we can actually advertise events now. And three, the downside of the video was that it became outdated like 6 months after you update it because of the rooftops and seasons. So this is one way that we can showcase our beautiful town right at the top. And as you can see here, this part has mainly stayed the same. We have gone through, though, and looked at all of the links that were the most visited links on the current site. And we tried to incorporate those more prevalent, more, right on the top part of the site, more so than the old ones, so that people can find information quicker and actually access what they're going to the site for. So, but for the most part, these stay the same, but you can see right here, this will tell you why most people go to the site. They go for our outage management system, online payments, the live stream agendas, economic development, and just overall request. And then this is a brand new section right here, our popular link section. So again, we actually went through the old site and looked at what people were visiting and going by staff comments, got community feedback, everything that I received on Facebook, everything, when they would go to part of the site looking for information. We tried to incorporate that better here. And again, a lot of this, it may be the same links, but it just looks a little different. But most people go to the site, one, they're trying to find the live stream, the podcast, real estate bids, stuff like that. And this is a new, just more aesthetically pleasing section. Right here, you'll see, this is just a refresh of the current events and latest news section, and the podcast, the Best Little Town podcast by Mr. Bart Warner, is more integrated into the site. It just looks built in, and every time a visitor comes to the site now, this is the actual latest episode. It's automatically generated. Bart does the podcast the day after the meeting, and it's already generated. So again, it's about usability, people going to the site, easily finding the information they're seeking. And this is a brand new section. Hello, y'all are on the front page now, right here with these pretty photos right here. And I will have to tell you, this section, I really wanted to add it because, believe it or not, we visited a ton of local small towns, municipalities all over the country to really pick the best parts of the sites we liked through Civic Plus, who we have a contract with. So we really went down a list of sites to look and what do we like, what we didn't like. And one that I loved, a feature, was how transparent some of these towns were and how with it they were with their design. And this was across most of those. They had their elected officials right on the homepage, and it was just really nice. It was nice that you could easily find that instead of diving deep into the site, and we love that. And we cleaned up the footer with some more, again, just making the links more easily accessible so people are going here, they can find what they're looking for. And I neglected to show you the top, which up here, it's a small thing, but it's very important now. You'll see the social media icons up here. We're making a move to make those more visible because those have become really important information outlets for us to get out information, meetings, agendas, everything. So we really want to drive people to that when they want to find our information because, believe it or not, this website is it's often our first billboard to people looking to move here, work here, visit here. So it is very important that this really resembles that and is really pretty, up to standards, looks like it, resembles the town that we are in. So this is the new site. Again, it will go live officially December the 4th, anywhere between 10 and 11 a.m. Hopefully, we will hit no hiccups, and it'll be at 11 o'clock. The new site will be live. Have any
Sounds
questions?
good, Woody.
All right.
Would say a big improvement.
Thank you.
Now, on the podcast,
Yes.
will we be able to go back and see previous ones or listen to them, or just the current one?
Yes, now you can go back to the whole archive.
Okay.
You click on that and all the old episodes will come up. And we also have, which is a really cool, again, I mean, you find out that like most things are just repackaged in different ways, right? So when you go to the live stream section of all the council meetings, we also have the podcast on our YouTube channel as well. So not only can they go and watch the meetings live, they can watch the past meetings, and they can actually listen to the podcast all on our channel. So really, again, we're utilizing the social media platforms as much as we can.
Good deal. All right, thank you. Big
Thank you.
improvement. Any questions?
I got
Yes,
a
sir.
question. You mentioned that the website is kind of like a first
Yes, sir.
look kind of thing that people can access,
Yeah.
that may be moving to the area or maybe in there just looking for other information. Would that be a proper or an appropriate venue for that email we get every once in a while from the workforce development folks about jobs in the area that are available?
Sure, real estate listings,
Sure,
probably
yes.
as much information about the community as we can get out there.
Thank you.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
On the website, do you have like staff or
Yes.
whatever?
Yes.
All the staff, all the employees and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a whole staff section so they can go through, they can search, and each department still has their own page, their own department. It's just, this is getting a reskin, but yes, we do have all the staff members, all the contact information, all that stays the same. Everything, all the functionality stays the same.
Okay.
New design, new look,
New look, new paint job.
updated.
But if for some reason something's not working right, let us know that.
Wasn't it? Before December the 4th, ideally.
Yeah.
That'd be really helpful, so. All right.
Sounds good, Woody, thanks.
Thank you, Woody.
All right. Fiscal year 25 capital rollover electric fund. Mr. Warner.
At the end of fiscal year 2025, there were certain capital improvement items in the electric capital fund that had been approved and appropriated but not spent at year end. These projects include upgrading the finance and billing software for utility billing, replacing the speed increaser, and hydro plant infrastructure improvements. After reviewing the different items in progress, staff recommends consideration of a budget amendment that would appropriate the prior year fund balance towards the expenditure accounts listed below. The fund balance is a total of $207,782, which would be appropriated to the finance and billing software in an amount of $60,293, replacement of the speed increaser in an amount of $112,812. And the hydro and structure improvement expenditure item of $34,677. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the budget amendment.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Councilman Haley made the motion, second.
Second.
Councilman Foreman. Any questions?
Do we have a timeline on these, John, to finish? Will they be finished before this fiscal year?
The infrastructure improvement at the dam is kind of an ongoing thing, you know, that, like we just had an issue where we have to do some repair on one of the footers up there, so that will come out of this fund. So that's kind of like a rainy day fund for that plant. The speed increaser money is because we have one speed increaser that has not been rebuilt, and we do some testing on that for vibrations and the oil test. And we need to have a contingency there in case that thing starts to wobble, basically. And we have to take it out of service in an emergency fashion.
Okay, so these are more of a contingency for
Yeah.
emergencies. Okay.
Now I have one question on the speed increase. Are we running both turbines, or what turbines is this speed recruit?
We are running both turbines, but we have water. Right now, we don't have enough water to run anything. But both of them are available to run. The Unit 5 has a brand-new speed increaser on it. Unit 4 has an old speed increaser. That's the one we have to monitor very closely. Like I say, we're monitoring vibrations, and we do oil testing on it to make sure it's not going to fail. And if we notice anything out of the ordinary, we've got to take it out of service and get it repaired. So that's why we need that contingency.
All right, John,
Aye.
Mr. Foreman,
Aye.
Mr. Haley,
Aye.
Mr. Ippolito,
Aye.
Mr. Updike,
Aye.
Mayor Stanley.
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 members voting aye.
All right, FEMA Town Emergency Protective Measures Reimbursement Grant for Mr. Warner.
Town of Bedford has been awarded a total of $6,340.64 in grant funding from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. February 2025, the town experienced severe winter ice and flooding events that resulted in significant impacts across multiple departments. Beginning in May 2025, town staff worked closely with VDEM and FEMA to document and verify expenses incurred as a direct result of the storm. Over the following months, expenditures were reviewed and classified as either eligible or ineligible for reimbursement. It was determined that hydro plant employees performing essential maintenance and preventive work in response to the event, incurring costs related to overtime, equipment use, and supplies totaling $7,045.16. Of this amount, FEMA has approved reimbursement for 75% of eligible expenses equaling $5,283.87, and VDEM will reimburse an additional $1,056.77 for the combined total of $6,340.64. And I'd also like to note we extend great thanks and appreciation to County Director of Emergency Management, Kent Roby, and his staff for facilitating this process and assisting us every step of the way. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the budget amendment, which would appropriate budget to the general ledger accounts associated with this activity.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Councilman Haley, second.
Yes.
Councilman Ippolito, any discussion, any questions, comments? I think we're good. Shauna?
Mr. Foreman,
Aye.
Mr. Haley,
Aye.
Mr. Ippolito,
Aye.
Mr. Updike,
Aye.
Mr. Evans,
Aye.
Mayor Stanley.
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 members voting aye.
All right, once again, FEMA Electric Department reimbursement grant.
This is kind of the same song, different verse. Related to the February 2025 event, there were certain expenditures accumulated by the electric department in general related to overtime, equipment use, and materials totaling $23,320.63. Of that amount, FEMA has approved reimbursement for 75% of eligible expenses, equaling $17,490.48. And VDEM will reimburse an additional $3,498.09 for a combined total of $20,988.57. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve the budget amendment that would direct funding related to those activities.
All right, your motion?
So moved.
All right, Councilman Evans and
Second.
Councilman Foreman made the second. Questions or discussion?
Question.
All right.
I know we got this for FEMA from the grant and whatever. Was this stuff filed with the insurance too? Do we have insurance on like when we lose stuff, and was that filed under the same thing as we got the FEMA grant too?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that. We had to supply copies of our insurance, and then they also had to determine if things were eligible or not. So these specific ones, most of this was actually a pole that was taken out in the storm, and it was not deemed eligible for insurance. So FEMA said, yes, we can reimburse you for the
Okay.
cost of the pole.
I was just asking that question, so. But it's great we're getting free money, so.
That's always good.
Yeah, it
And
is.
thank you to the engineer, Charlie Epperly, because he dedicated a lot of work to track down all of these expenses and
Okay.
really helped us get this grant.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions? Shauna?
Mr. Haley,
Aye.
Mr. Ippolito,
Aye.
Mr. Updike,
Aye.
Mr. Evans,
Aye.
Mr. Foreman,
Aye.
Mayor Stanley.
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 members voting aye.
First quarter 26, recoveries budget amendment, assignment of revenues received for renewable energy credits.
The Blue Ridge Power Agency represents the town of Bedford at the Southeast Power Administration and markets the renewable energy credits allocation on behalf of the town. The renewable energy credits, or RECs, attached to the town of Bedford's allocation of hydro production of the various facilities represented by Blue Ridge Power Agency, or BURPA. Town of Bedford received $329,618.25 for its allocation of RECs from Blue Delta, the agent retained by the Blue Ridge Power Agency. Town has also received $34,287.88 from underground fees. The electric department is requesting a capital appropriation of $426,578, with the additional revenue funding a majority of the appropriation and the remainder to be funded from the available prior year reserves located within the electric capital fund. Tonight, Town Council is requested to approve a budget amendment which will appropriate revenue in an amount of $426,758 total to several expenditure line item activities, also totaling $426,758.
Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Vice Mayor Suckup and Councilman Haley made the second. What questions do you have or comments? Pretty cut and dry? Good? We good? Sean?
Mr. Haley.
Aye.
Mr. Ippolito.
Aye.
Mr. Updike.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Foreman.
Aye.
Mayor Stanley.
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 members voting aye.
All right, the next three budget amendments we agreed to consolidate, so Mr. Warner, go right ahead.
The first of the three budget amendments before you relates to expenses for our strategic planning retreat on October 25th, 2025 at the Bedford Public Library. The retreat was facilitated by Craig Meadows of the Berkeley Group for a total cost of $6,277.20. That was not previously budgeted, but we did think it was a worthwhile activity and money well spent. The next item is budget amendment for the tree lighting ceremony. This relates to a request from John Hayden at our October 28th meeting. He appeared and requested sponsorship of $5,000 towards the tree lighting ceremony to be held on December 6th. Funding approved in the prior year was $2,500, and so the same funding level has been agreed upon for the 2025 event. That was in a personal conversation I had with Mr. Hayden. I'm going to take this opportunity again to say if anybody wants to give John money for that event, call him at 540-425-4675. Final budget amendment relates to employee self-service time module and time clocks. At the work session on October 28th, staff briefed Town Council on the request to add an employee self-service and time and attendance module with time clocks to our town's enterprise resource planning software contract management. Essentially, this is going to streamline a lot of our time and attendance required activities and make that more efficient. And it was in an agreement with our software provider, Tyler Technologies, in light of other work that they're going to be doing for us. I won't say it's quite a rebate situation, but they were a little late in delivering something else, so they offered us a break in price on this, and this is $25,695 requested to handle the startup costs for this initial year. So the request before you is to approve budget amendments of $6,278 for the budget retreat, $2,500 for the sponsorship of the tree lighting event, and $25,695 to initiate the new time and attendance system.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Councilman Haley and Councilman Foreman made the second. What questions do you have?
Only question I would have, the $2,500, is that gonna be a continuous thing moving forward?
No.
Okay.
It's the initial startup cost, a lot of it. There will be a maintenance fee, but it's not going to be that.
Roughly $9,000 a year maintenance fee.
Okay. Good, that's all I need. Thank you.
Anything else? John?
Mr. Ippolito.
Aye.
Mr. Updike.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Foreman.
Aye.
Mr. Haley.
Aye.
Mayor Stanley.
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 members voting aye.
All right, ordinance amendment and reenactment of section 34-53 of the town code regarding parking tickets and penalty for overtime parking.
For several months, as you're all probably aware, there have been discussions about perception of parking issues within the downtown area. Consistent theme of those discussions relates to the town's enforcement practices related to vehicles that are parked in violation of parking regulations. Currently, under town code, the town charges a minimum fine of not less than $10 per ticket for vehicles that are illegally parked and $20 for each successive ticket received on the same day. The relative value of these particular amounts has decreased over time, and they do not appear to have much of a deterrent effect on the practice of illegal parking. In response, staff has reviewed the matter and recommends that the minimum fine for vehicles that are illegally parked be increased to $30 per ticket and $50 for each successive ticket received on the same day. Tonight, Town Council is requested to consider adoption of an amendment and reenactment of Section 34-53 of the Town Code to increase the minimum fine for vehicles that are illegally parked to be increased to $30 per ticket and $50 for each successive ticket received on the same day.
All right, do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Councilman Evans, second.
Second.
Councilman Felipe, second. All right, what questions do we have on this? Comments or ideas?
Are we gonna get somebody to enforce it?
Yes.
So we're gonna have a full-time person pretty much doing it every day, 5 days a week?
Well, first I'll say, if you want a full-time person, that's in your purview, and that's going to be a budget discussion. We're going to handle this with the existing staff that you've approved in the current budget, but yes, we will be, and Chief Moore, if you want to add to anything I'm saying, we will be addressing it.
We did have some conversations during the retreat about adding
Yeah.
the position for
Yeah,
that.
I was not at the retreat.
Yeah, you were,
Okay,
yeah,
Yes.
we discussed that.
Kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit.
just asking the question.
Yep.
The fines will go to the general fund, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then is there a school of thought that those fines could be helped to offset the cost of someone to work parking?
That would be a strategic way to approach it, yes.
If we did that, would they need to go into a restricted fund? No, okay.
Historically, they've been relatively low. We'll have to see if that changes.
Probably the absence of a dedicated position has something to do with that.
And are we gonna give a warning period where you don't just jump up the rate right away, catch people by, or are we gonna, how?
Well, I think that's up to council if you want to do that. Let me see what,
I didn't know, there's nothing in there.
right now it's effective following publication.
Yeah,
So if
Yeah,
you
that's
want,
what I was wondering.
if you want to give a grace period, I think you could do that.
You can do that. I would suggest that as a matter of, that be a matter of administration rather than added to the ordinance. There is discretion on the part of officers to do that. And I imagine that we'll have to put up signs that there will be changes to the amount and that probably that will be administered in a reasonable manner, and that the chief and the town manager see the sense of council that there ought to be some leeway given as we get the signs up and as people get used to it, but that there's a reason why we publish this and there's a reason why we have
Yeah,
hearings,
Oh, yeah.
so that people should pay attention.
yes.
You know, if we're talking about designating a new parking area, I could understand some leeway, but, you know, people know that they're not supposed to
that's
park
true,
there.
yeah. That's true.
You know, that's not a change, you know.
That's true, it's just changing the, you're right, it's just changing the fee.
Yes. More of a deterrent.
Oh, yeah,
That would be nice.
I think it's reasonable now.
I agree with it. White? Anything else? Darryl?
So I have one more question. So is this, when I'm talking about a full-time person, is this gonna be a full-time police officer or just?
I'm not really prepared to have that discussion. That's a budget
That's fine.
discussion. Basically, we're going to handle enforcement with the existing personnel we have in the fiscal year.
Because I know we had a parking guy doing it, but he was not a full-time.
And that was removed by council from a budget in the previous discussion, so I
Yeah.
don't mean to be salty about it, but that's a you guys' decision.
Yeah.
And that was made before, and that's why we are where we are.
We'll talk about that in budget.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else? Stacey, you good? Good? Charlie?
Mr. Foreman.
Aye.
Mr. Haley.
Aye.
Mr. Ippolito.
Aye.
Mr. Updike.
Aye.
Mr. Evans.
Aye.
Mayor Stanley.
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 members voting aye.
All right, ordinance amendment and reenactment of section 34-42 of the town code regarding fees associated with parking on private property.
According to the Code of Virginia, towns have the authority to establish permissible limits for fees to be charged by private parking lot operators to owners of vehicles who are trespassing in the process of being towed and/or that have an immobilization device placed on them. This fee has been set at $25 within the town of Bedford for over 30 years, during which time the purchasing power and value of $25 has substantially decreased. In recognition of this, and at the request of individual private parking lot operators within town, staff has reviewed the matter in comparison with other localities and recommends that the allowable charge be increased from $25 to $75. Tonight, Town Council is requested to consider adoption of an ordinance amendment and reenactment of Section 34-42 of the Town Code to increase the allowable charge by private parking lot operators to owners of vehicles who are trespassing in the process of being towed and/or that have immobilization devices placed on them from $25 to $75.
Do you hear a motion?
So moved.
Councilman Haley, and second?
Yeah.
Councilman Ippolito. What questions do you all have?
We have, the second paragraph talks about, and I don't know if it's enough, in event of in lieu of towing the vehicle, it says it shouldn't cost more than $75. And I don't know what the towing fees are now from that. Would that cover the cost of towing the vehicle? Because I don't want to put the property owner liable to pay some of the cost of towing the vehicle.
True. Mr. Reynolds, would you want to say anything, or?
Been a problem for a good while.
Yeah.
The towing issue, it's whoever can come. They're scattered from Roanoke to Lynchburg. Really everybody has longer things, so the towing will have to be done after 5 o'clock due to the design of the parking lot.
Okay.
For someone to get in there. It's mainly an issue of people just not paying attention or just don't care. I think it's got a lot to do with the parking on the streets as well.
Because I can make an amendment to make it $150, no more, shall not exceed $150.
I'm fine with whatever you all,
Because I think 75, I don't think 75 is going to cover the towing cost.
Well, the towing cost goes to the owner of the vehicle, not the property owner.
But they can't charge more than $75, so if somebody's going to refuse to tow for $75? Because I've seen them charge $100 or more for towing.
I don't really know what they charge nowadays.
I paid $125 not long ago.
I've seen them charge more than that, but as far as the boot goes, that would be me, and the towing's whoever I call, and it is what it is. If people don't have the money, they shouldn't park there to begin with.
Yeah,
And
well, that's why
that should fall on them.
Okay, so you don't have to pay, you don't have to pay the fee if it's towed?
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Signs are up,
Yeah.
It's
It's towed at
okay.
the
I just
the
don't want to
owner's-
come back on you.
right.
It's-
I
it's-
appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a
The
good-
towing bill goes to the
Yeah.
owner of the vehicles, not the property owner.
Yeah, I just didn't come back on.
Yeah.
Good
So,
point.
so, yeah, it's not falling back on the property owner at all.
But, yeah, but do we still need to raise that maybe to cover the towing companies? Because that way they'll still come? Because if they can only charge $75.
Well, they're gonna charge whatever rate they're gonna charge, and the person's not gonna get their vehicle back till they pay,
Did I pay it?
yeah.
But the way the code says, the charge for the removal of vehicle, and this may be a question for Mr. Lockerbie. Because the way I read it, they can't charge more than $75 for removal of the vehicle.
Because it says cannot exceed.
That's the way I read it.
Okay, yeah, I understand what
Oh,
you're saying
I'm-
now.
Yeah,
What are you saying, 125?
yeah, well, I think we need to raise it up because I think it says they can't charge more than that for towing the vehicle.
I think that's right.
Okay.
Because at that point, there's no tow happening.
Yeah,
In lieu of, yeah.
in lieu of, yeah, so, and if the tow company refuses to come for $75, then they're not gonna tow it, so. I would say no more than one, my amendment
Okay.
would be no more than $150.
Right.
You want to make that amendment?
Yeah, I'll make a friendly amendment to
Okay,
it.
Okay. That's,
yeah,
what's before you is 150.
Yeah,
all good,
So we
Friendly
take that
amendment
to
accepted by
100
Mr. Haley.
to 150.
150.
yeah.
John, did you get that? Okay. Yeah. That'll be a good deterrent.
When would that take effect?
Yeah, and I think we've said
think
effective
it
upon
says-
posting.
We have that,
Yeah, effective upon posting, I think probably you could assume it's in effect as of December 1. Because the posting can take fewer or more days depending on how the business days fall.
okay. Is that quick enough? You okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Good deal. All right. Any other comments, questions? Yep, that's good. Very good, Todd. All right, Shawna?
Mr. Haley?
Aye.
Mr. Ippolito?
Aye.
Mr. Updike?
All right,
Mr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Foreman?
Aye.
Mayor Stanley?
Aye.
Motion carries with 6 members voting aye.
I believe that takes care of everything. If there's no other business, this meeting is adjourned.